Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
My pleasure to be on.
We are continuing our series on fantastical stories in the Quran commentaries, Dr. Shabir, and this time we want to turn to chapter 5 in the Quran, in which Moses is speaking to his people and saying, enter the land that God has promised you. And the people are responding, well, we don't want to enter because there are these ferocious people there. So Dr. Shabir, tell me what the commentaries have said about this verse.
Yes. So first of all, to be clear, Safia, the verse only says that the people said, "Inna fiha qawman jabbarin." There are, let's use the Arabic words, there are jabbar people in there. So what's meant by jabbar?
Okay.
Jabbar.
So I translated it ferocious.
Ferocious.
Yes.
And it's not a bad translation, but I just want to get into more details so folks can see, where we're going from what the Quran says to what the commentaries are building on this. So only from the word jabbar, we're analyzing the word. The word jabbar is related to the word jabr, which means compulsion. So it may mean that these are people who will impose their own will. These are forceful people. They are powerful people. It could relate to size because, in human history, those who were bigger and taller were more powerful.
Dominant, yes.
Or dominant. But it doesn't, you don't have to read that these were like exorbitantly tall people, as we might conceive of giants like ogres and whatever. But this is precisely what is conceived of in the books of tafsir, or in some of the books of tafsir. And some important ones, like the tafsir of al-Qurtubi, for example. Al-Qurtubi's tafsir is thought to be so important that now we have an English translation of it. And I should point out that, it's not an easy task to translate one of the classical books of tafsir, because they grow into details of Arabic grammar and so on, and all of that is very difficult for the translator. So I must commend the translators for taking up that task, because it's very important that...
Can you show us the book?
Yes. So this is called Tafsir al-Qurtubi. This happens to be volume 6 in the series, nicely translated by our sister Aisha Bewley in the United Kingdom, and published by Diwan Press. In this, so that the translation itself speaks to the importance of the book and its relevance to Muslims even today, and certainly, it has a lot of readership in the Arabic-speaking world among Muslims, but in the English-speaking world, we are deprived of these classical works, and we only hear parts of them, and naturally, we hear a kind of sanitized version of them. And having the translation in our hands, we can see the details of what the tafsirs actually say. And apart from all of the good stuff that are in these tafsirs, for which reason I refer to them again and again, I'm a student of these great scholars. And nothing I say here is meant to demean their work or to belittle them in the eyes of people. No, I want to continue to present these great scholars of our classical works in proper light. They, on the one hand,
you have respect for them.
I have respect for them. I learn from them. I would gladly sit at their knees and learn from them. At the same time, we have to recognize what we should not be learning from them, and we cannot just simply present their works and them as persons as though like they were the wisest people in all of history. Because yes, they were the wisest people for their time in a particular dimension. They were the great commentators on the Quran, and that's why the works have been copied and now being translated, and we should continue to learn from them. But what to get to the point now, al-Qurtubi gives us an example of these Jabbar people. He said that these were the remnants of the people of Ad, people who are mentioned in the Quran. It is also said that they were descendants of Esau, the son of Ishaq, that is Isaac, and they were Greeks. Now, Uj ibn Unuk was one of them, or Uj ibn A'naq was one of them, or Arnak. His height was 3,333 cubits. 3,333 cubits. I want, that could easily...
What does that mean? How do we understand that?
So a cubit is approximately 18 inches. There are different measures of cubits in different civilizations, but this was very common. People thought of the human arm, the arm of an average man, probably, from elbow down is about 18 inches. That was called a cubit in many civilizations. So if we think of a cubit as being 1.5 feet, and this person measured 3,333 cubits, basically he was about 5,000 feet tall. And in fact, they go on to say, as much as they imagine how tall he was, they imagine how close the sun would have been. Because they said that this man would reach down into the depths of the ocean, he would grab a fish, and then he would roast it on the eye of the sun, and then he would eat it. And when he wanted to drink, he drank from the clouds. So it even says graphically that he would hook the cloud with his hook. Shepherds would have a kind of a hooked stick. So a stick like that apparently would be what he used to hook the cloud so he could drink from it.
I could see this being a wonderful bedtime story for a child.
well, yes, yes. And to have this in the book of Tafsir, of commentary on the Quran, this is like we're reading, we want to find out what God says to us. And this is what the commentator says. It's a possibility. Now, when he says qila, it is said, he means that, it's not necessarily his own idea. He's just presenting it. But the fact that he could present it, it makes him different from a modern-day commentator, because a modern-day commentator would not even present this. Modern-day commentator knows it's ludicrous and it's not worth mentioning. So it shows that the narrators here were operating with a different mindset. And moreover, he goes into detail about the size of Moses as well. So this Uj ibn Unuq picked up a rock the size of the army of Moses, of the Israelite army, intending to crush the Israelite army with that huge rock. So one rock would crush the entire army, apparently. But God sent a bird which pecked at the rock so that it fell and hit him, and that knocked him to the ground. Now, Moses, it is said, and this apparently was missed in the translation, in the Arabic version, which I happen to have here as well. So this book was actually published in many versions. This is the Arabic version of, published in many editions. So this is the Arabic version of Tafsir al-Qurtubi. This happens to be the 7th volume. It's a whole stack of books filling a shelf. And nicely done by these editors. And here, the size of Moses is given to be, what does it says? أقبل موسى عليه السلام وطوله عشرة أذرع. So Moses approached this man, and Moses' height was 10 cubits. So 10 cubits would mean he's about 15 feet. And his staff is 15 feet as well. And Moses jumped into the air 15 feet. And with all of this, you think of the height of Moses himself and his jump 15 feet into the air and his staff reaching up another 15 feet. Even so, he was only able to strike the ankle of this Uj ibn Unuq. And as a result of that, he knocked him to the ground and he died. So we have this great length of height of Musa alayhi salam, of Moses, the prophet who is known from the Bible. Of course, readers of the Bible will get no impression that Moses was of such a tremendous height, 15 feet tall. The tafsir of Al-Imam al-Suyuti even has a narrative that places the height of Moses as somewhere between 50 cubits to 55 cubits. Now, 55...
Based on the same verse?
Yes, commenting on the same verse. And the tafsir called Ad-Durr al-Manthur by Al-Imam al-Suyuti from the Middle Ages has as a narrative commenting on this verse, this one that says that Moses measured so much. Now, 50 cubits would mean 75 feet, if we assume a cubit to be 1.5 feet. And that would render Moses to be of a close height to that of what is reported of Adam in some hadiths. And this it points to a problem for the Muslim commentators, in that basically they had the idea that those stories which come from the other sources, which they have now dubbed Israeliyat, they're saying, like Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, in his book Al-Muqaddimah fi Usul al-Tafsir, Introduction to the Principles of Tafsir, he says, okay, so as for the Israelite narratives, if they are in harmony with or in agreement with our hadith, then they could be accepted and narrated. If they are in disagreement, then they should be rejected. And if they are neither in agreement nor disagreement, then, we're neutral concerning them. The problem is that some of the Israelite narratives or this kind of fantastical story, some of it is in the hadith as well. So when they're thinking what to accept and what to reject, they naturally accept some of these fantastical stories because they're thinking, well, there's an agreement, because if Adam could be 90 feet tall, so what's wrong with Moses being 75 feet tall? And Muntasir Zaman has written a book on the height of Adam, which is another discussion altogether. Like, for us to discuss the presence of such fantastical things in hadith as well. But for the moment, I'm just sticking to the commentaries, in which we have even more fantastical stories. And you can see the lengths to which these go, or the heights, not to make a pun on the word here. So this is what we're dealing with. So we have to read sagaciously, knowing that these great scholars of tafsir, they've done a wonderful job of presenting to us the classical material. But now we have to go into the sifting phase of differentiating between what is good and bad, what is wholesome, and what should be left out of books of tafsir now.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome. Our videos reach people all over the world. We hope you will seize the opportunity to share in the reward from God. Please support us today.